Hi, welcome to Lesson 10 of Excel. My name is Sophie and I'm going to be your trainer, coach and mentor for this session. So, in the previous session, we learned about functions, which consists of fx as a main key and also and also colon. Now, the other function that we learned in the previous session was sum and average. Now, today we are going to learn more about count and counter. Now, what is count and counter? Now, let's look on count first. Count means that you enter a function that counts the number of cells that contains numbers only. So, for example, here, I can see visibly there are 3 cells for this particular range that has numbers, that contains numbers. So let's say if you like Excel for you to do it, first things first, what I have to do is to put my cursor at G15. Once I put my cursor at G15, I click on FX. Now, once I click on FX, suppose that I cannot find count. So just type in C, alright? Sorry, not C here. Click here at the blue area and click C. Scroll down until you see the word count. Make sure that you see very clearly is the word count there. Now, once it's count and not counter or cosh, I click on OK. Once that's done, I type in the range. So what's the range? G12 to G14. G12 to G14. Now, I know earlier you saw the word G12 to G14, but this is true practice so that you know there are other areas which sometimes you like to calculate the count. Then straight away click on OK. Now, once I click on OK, automatically you see the word 3 here because there are 3 cells that contains numbers. Okay? Now, next one. Let's say try another one. I would like to count here for the range, enter a function, alright, that counts the number of cells that contains numbers for the range G17 to G20. First things first, I put my cursor at G21. Once I put my cursor at G21, I click on FX. Now, suppose that you have clicked count before. Here, or select a category, I can just click on most recently used. So do you notice previously I've used the word count? Now, once it's count, I click on OK. Now, so what's the range here? The range here is G17 to G20. So when you see that it's automatically here, alright, you can straight away click OK. But let's say if it's not, just ensure that you type in the correct symbol and make sure that it's colon and not semicolon. Once that's done, I click on OK. Now, so do you notice here there are 4? This means that there are 4 cells that contains numbers only for the range G17 to G20. Alright? Now, so that's for count. Now, so what's counter then? Now, counter is 4 cells that contains, in simple terms, words. Alright? Or basically anything that has a content. Okay? Now, but for certain questions, they will ask you specifically for numbers that has words, and so we know tung immediately is counter. So it's not so confusing. Alright? Now, because for count is strictly numbers, but for counter is anything that has words in it, or numbers, or anything that has data in it. So for instance, let's say if I would like to type in the enter a function at I15 that counts the number of cells that contain words for I12 to I14. So how do I go about it? First things first, I go to I15. After I15, I click on it, click on FX. Now, once I click on FX, what am I looking for right now? Count or counter? Counter, right? So now let's see whether they hit this counter here. There's counter here. So once I click on counter, I click OK. Now, so what is the range they're asking for? So they wanted for I12 to I14. Is this I12 to I14? No, right? So I have to highlight this, type in I12 colon I14. Now check. Always check whether that I've typed in correctly. Once that's done, I just click on OK. So you notice there are 3 cells here that contains words in it. Alright, now let's try another one. Now, so let's say at I21, I'd like to enter a function, alright, for that counts the number of cells that contains from I17 to I20. So first things first, I click on I21. So function is fx, right? Now after fx, I go to counter. Now after Counta, what is the range here? I-17 to I-20. So I type in I-17 colon I-20. Now check if I've done it correctly. Once I've done it correctly, I click on OK. So do you notice that? There are 4 cells that contain that contains words only. Okay? Now let me just do an experiment with you. So we know that count is for this, right? Now, but for Counta is only for numbers only. Now let's do an experiment. Now let's say if we accidentally use Counta for this, let's see what the number would be like. Okay, so at J15, let's say I accidentally enter the function count instead of Counta to calculate I12 to I14. Well, let's see what happens. So J15 fx, right? So where do I go? Count. Now this is the wrong one, but I just like to show you what happens if it's the wrong one. So when I click on count, what is the range? I12 to I14, right? I can also highlight it as well, yeah? So as you notice here. Now, I12 to I14, right? Once this is done, I click OK. Notice what happens. 0, right? Now, why is that so? Because these cells does not contain numbers. So henceforth, that's why this is 0. Okay, so you have to be very careful in selecting the functions, whether is it count or whether is it Counta. Alright, okay, so that's it for count and Counta. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching.